I'm going to tell you something right now, brothers. The Transformers lore is not a rabbit hole you want to go down. It's dark in there, man. I grew up with these guys. You know, we used to break them in pieces to transform them into trucks or something, man. We would just smash them up, kind of stick them back together. You approximate the shape of a truck or whatever it was. Now, Megatron, man. Megatron is the real deal. This guy was a real American Transformer. Transformed into a damn gun, dude. Optimus Prime turned into a truck. You know, he was bringing supplies to people in need. No way, man. Megatron was a damn gun. Sometimes a tank, too. Anyways, brother, this is a magic channel, so we're going to build a commander deck around this guy at the request of one of my patrons, William. It's an interesting card. Let's read it, but before we do, gently turn into a thumb. Click all those buttons, baby. Don't turn into a gun now, alright? Join the Patreon if you want to get the damn request for yourself, buddy. You're going to want to cast this guy for its more than meets the eye cost, which is 1 red, white, and a black for Megatron Destructive Force. Legendary artifact vehicle. It's a 4/5 with living metal. As long as it's your turn, this vehicle is also a creature. When this guy attacks, you may sacrifice another artifact. When you do, Megatron deals damage equal to the sacrifice artifact's mana value to target creature. The excess damage will be dealt to that creature this way. Instead, that damage is dealt to that creature's controller and you convert Megatron. So basically, you attack with this guy, sack an artifact, hit some Esper Sentinel or Birds of Paradise, then convert it to Megatron Tyrant. 3 red, white, and a black for a legendary artifact creature robot. It's a 7/5. So your opponents can't cast spells during combat. At the beginning of your post-combat main phase, you may convert Megatron. If you do, add colorless for each 1 life your opponents have lost this turn. So this is the guy that's attacking because that first effect is an attack trigger. Then you convert it back and add a bunch of mana, dude. Second main phase, cast more artifacts. It's actually a pretty powerful play pattern that slangs damage around, puts big stuff in your graveyard for later reanimation. The only problem is that Megatron has no evasion. You know, he just bangs in. Now, looping artifacts in and out of the graveyard has been powerful since Goblin Welder all the way back in Urza's Legacy. This has an impressive block attack on it, but what it amounts to is exchanging an artifact you control with an artifact in the graveyard. Also works for any player, although mostly you're going to be using it for yourself. Since then, we've gotten Trash for Treasure. You know, that's a good one, does the same thing. We also have Scrap Mastery, another sweet card. 3 red sorcery. Each player exiles all artifacts from their graveyard, then sacrifices all artifacts they control, then puts all cards they exiled this way onto the battlefield. Now, Scrap Mastery has a picture of this guy, Oscar the Grouch, the trash man himself, to ready Scrap Savant. 3 in a red, loyalty 3 planeswalker, +2, discard up to 2 cards, then draw that many cards, nice rummaging effect. -2, sacrifice an artifact. If you do, return target artifact card from your graveyard to the battlefield. Then -10, you get an emblem with whenever an artifact is put in your graveyard from the battlefield, return that card to the battlefield at the beginning of the next end step. This is a powerful commander all by itself. There's power in that Pope head, brother. You know, if we lean into artifact creatures, you can just reanimate them with Reanimate, Animate, Dead, but you have that added synergy from cards like Junk Diver, Scrap Trawler, stuff like that. Basically, if you're leaning into artifacts, you want lots and lots of artifacts. A big concentration. One of the most fun recursion engines printed in modern times, Osgear the Reconstructor. 2 red and a white for a legendary creature, Giant Artificer. It's a 4/4 with Vigilance. Has 1, sack an artifact, target creature you control gets +2/+0 until end of turn. Or X and tap, exile an artifact card with mana value X from your graveyard, create 2 tokens that are copies of the exiled card. Activate only as a sorcery, you idiot. So with that extra mana you're getting second main phase, just use that to activate Osgear, you silly goose. How about a damn clone shell for your face, dude? This guy's gestating some ridiculous creature you just turned over, but in reality, it's just more fodder for Megatron. Now, you're seeing a lot of cards from the 2014 red artifact deck, and you're seeing a lot of cards from the Osgear deck, but since this card came out, I've always wanted to find use case scenarios for it. The Ruin Grinder. This guy's out there on Grinder, buddy. Don't judge. 5 in a red for an artifact creature construct. It's a 7/4 with Menace. When this guy dies, each player may discard their hand, draw 7 cards, mountain cycling for 2. Man, I just look at the art and I think it's a weird card. It's got those big paws, those grinder paws. This guy looks like a Skyrim dungeon boss, dude. How about Unearth? Are there any sweet Unearth cards in the dang game of Magic the Gathering? Yes. We had some really sweet Necron Commander decks from the Warhammer 40k set. It's an artifact creature recursion deck, so maybe we can cannibalize some cards from there. I just love the art on this thing, the Hexmark Destroyer. Big news, it's got Unearth for 4 black, which is the same as its mana cost. Big old 6/6 creature. Is this a good card? Generally no, but it's got a nice flavor. It's got that laser flavor. Looks menacing and can be flung with absolute ease by our commander. And the Brothers War had a ton of artifact cards that we can slot in there to get shot out of Megatron's cannon. The Cityscape Leveler, 8 generic mana for an artifact creature construct. It's an 8/8 with trample. Whenever you cast this spell and whenever Cityscape Leveler attacks, destroy up to 1 target non-land permanent. Its controller creates a tapped Power Stone token, has Unearth for 8. Now this is a good card, albeit a big stupid commander card. It's got up to about $10. Skitter Beam Battalion, dude. 9 generic mana, artifact creature construct. It's a 4/4, has prototype for 3 red, and it's a 2/2 if you do that. Trample and haste. When this guy enters the battlefield, if you cast it, create 2 tokens that are copies of it. Megatron doesn't care if the artifact you sacrifice is a token, so you can fling around 5 damage for 3 turns, man. It is a cast trigger to get the clones, so just keep that in mind. Now, Doctor Who had all these nutty artifact creatures on the villain side of things. How about the Cyberman Squadron? 7 generic mana artifact creature Cyberman. It's a 5/5. Non-legendary artifact creatures you control have myriad, dude. So say you attack with this guy, the mana value is a copyable ability. So you stack the triggers so you create the Cybermen copies and then sack one to Megatron's ability. At least I think that's how it works, you know? A bunch of triggers happen when you declare attackers, including the 2 we're talking about here, brother. Look at this guy. I always wanted to find a deck for this thing. The Ultimate Chad Master, giving your mom the 2-finger salute over there. Iron Soul Enforcer, 4 and a white for an artifact creature, Human Samurai. It's a 4/4. Whenever this guy or a commander you control attacks alone, return target artifact card from your graveyard to the battlefield. With all that sacrifice and recursion, man, Coveted Jewel is also a good card to consider. 6 generic mana for an artifact. When it enters the battlefield, draw 3 cards. Has tap, add 3 mana of any one color. Whenever one of our creatures in opponent's control attack you and aren't blocked, that player draws 3 cards and gains control of Coveted Jewel. Untap it. Well, it's going to be in the graveyard by that point, hopefully anyway. You gotta stick in Wake the Past, man. It's got a robot raid on it. 5 red and white for a sorcery. Return all artifact cards from your graveyard to the battlefield. They gain haste until end of turn. At endgame, this can be your knockout blow. It's asymmetrical, meaning it only hits your graveyard. We leaned into artifact creatures in this deck, but it gets back all those little mana rocks you sacrificed at the beginning of the game too. I actually really like the Fallout version pictured here. So how powerful is Megatron really? You know, I think you could build a pretty decent casual commander deck for about $100 or so. The sample deck I made is about $150. You could up that if you wanted to, get some Krark Clan Ironworks combos in there, or a Blightsteel Colossus, a version of which features Megatron anyway. You can pack Megatron with more Megatron, dude. Beautiful card. Yeah, man, I was around when Commander 2014 hit the scene. We had a fantastic artifact recursion deck with Duretti and Feld, and a bunch of my friends, we all got those commander decks. My friend Tyler got the Duretti deck, dude, tortured us with it. We had Felden in there, Goblin Welder was in there as well. Megatron kind of reminds me of that deck. Uses a lot of the same cards. It's inherently a little more board control. You're killing something once a turn, and that's the bulk of your damage. It's not super attack focused, although there are certainly some sweet attackers in there in your larger artifact creatures that can close out the game. Overall, it's a very fun deck. You're slapping excess damage around, you're ramping like crazy in that second main phase. You got some bigger mana rocks in there. You can slap in some big artifact creatures. It's kind of fitting that Megatron is uniting the Necrons, the Cybermen, Mishra's war machines, you know. Then he turns into a damn tank turret and blasts them trebuchet style into your opponent's creatures. Anyways, man, I hope you enjoyed. Nicky G from Better Commander, signing off.